There you are.
There you are. We did it.
This is new to me.
This is pretty incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. I put on a clean shirt, so this would go well. It is so good for me to have a chance to share with you at Westminster again. And I want to thank Chris Gloff for the opportunity to do this. You are my favorite church. I've seen a lot, and I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you. I hope you know how lucky you are to have Chris Gloff on your staff. I don't think maybe you know. I was thrilled when he took that position. His parents, Ralph and Jean, were fabulous volunteers, huge volunteers in this church. They were instrumental in starting the Loaves and Fishes ministry, which still goes on, among a ton of other things we don't have time to go into now. My first memory of Chris is when he was in some of Verdine's musicals and starred in some of them. Later, he directed his own musicals down in South Hall. They were raising money for various missions in the church and out of the church. He probably has already told you how he came back from DePaul University during those years and spent a few weeks with Darlene and me doing an internship, following us around. He was playing with the idea of maybe should he go to seminary or not. But his gifts are in music and drama, and that's where God was leading him. And that's where he is now. And he's got to be in his 50s now. I can't quite believe how he got there. But the last few years have been hard on all of us. COVID has disrupted our lives, killed some of us. It's spread grief, stress, hardship. It's not over. Politics have become extreme and bitter in our country, dividing family and friends, threatening our democracy. Now we have a war in Ukraine. The TV's filled with visions of death and destruction, desperate refugees, children in rags. And this congregation has experienced some disappointment with ministers. And some members have given up and left. Some feel betrayed. So what can we do when our faith is shaken? And when people we believed in break our trust or our hearts? I'd like to tell you about my brother, Bill. Bill was 10 years older than I am when I was little. Actually, he was always 10 years older. He was my hero as I was growing up. He said he and I were secret buddies. He died 10 years ago, but I think it's okay for me to share that now. And Bill became an ordained Presbyterian minister. And in 1960, I was on a boat trip, a sailboat trip, an adventure, and I was in France. We were crossing from the English Channel to the Mediterranean. And my brother happened to be coming to France for a conference, and we met up in Strasbourg and as adults. And I hadn't really interacted with him much as an adult because he was always in a different place age-wise than I was. And at that time, I was a seminary student in between years of seminary on an adventure, traveling. And Bill, my brother, was a campus pastor at the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, in the pre-civil rights South. And we met in France in 1960. And Bill shocked me by saying that he'd been thinking of demitting the ministry and leaving the church. And he said, Dick, he said, the church is a whore, but she's my mother. And everything I know about justice and about Jesus, I learned from her. And he stayed in the church. He was experiencing evil in the church in the South, where the church was colluding in the suppression of blacks and in a system that was crushing black lives. And I could write a book on why I think the world would be better off without any religions. But you could in a way say the same thing about love. We'd be better off without love. Look how many lives it wrecks and hurts and pain it causes. But to lose love is to lose the best part of life. I've thought a lot about the harm that religion does, and it does harm. And I've come up with Roger's third law of the wavelength theory of good and evil. I think I made this up myself. I may have been influenced by things I don't remember. But it goes like this. The greater capacity a person or an organization has for good, for doing good, creating good, they have a correspondingly great potential for causing harm and evil or bad. And you can't have the possibility of good without having a corresponding capacity for evil, any more than you can have a wave with a crest without a wave with a trough. For example, your parents, in their role as parents, have more potential to hurt you or help you than the neighbor down the street. His potential is much more limited. A surgeon in his or her work has the power to maybe heal you or kill you. Great range of possibility. The man who mows your grass can either give you a bad cut or a nice lawn. Very narrow range of potential. More potential for good, the more potential for harm. The more possible outcomes. Same for organizations. A Lions Club can provide for friendship, do service projects, but Lion Clubs very seldom go demonic. Religious groups can go demonic. It was religious leaders who killed Jesus. Church has, by the grace of God, the potential to transform lives or betray them. It's a huge range of possible outcomes that are built in. My brother was experiencing the church supporting racism in all aspects of the community, deliberately condoning violence, and it broke his heart. But Bill stayed in the church, and he was prophetic all the rest of his life. After Georgia, he became campus pastor at Cornell University, where he was for 17 years, trying to transform structures from inside. A prophetic voice in education. He helped start a Christian seminary in Brazil. He even learned Portuguese and taught there for a year or two. The students were mostly Black, poor women, who came to study after work. He inspired me about Habitat for Humanity because he knew some of the founders. It was started in Georgia. And his inspiration led directly to the founding of Northwest Indiana Habitat for Humanity. It came from him. It came from his commitment to justice and to Jesus. His faith was in God, not in the church. I offer Bill as an example of those who are offended by the church because he was. He was offended by some ministers. And churches have tremendous potential for healing and for wickedness. If you know somebody who's been disillusioned by the church, and there's lots of us out there, focus on Jesus. Reread the Gospels. Maybe start with Mark. Make Jesus your Lord. Make your life a reflection of his love. It can't go wrong that way. And you will be transformed. P.S. The year after Phil left Georgia, the first school integration in the state of Georgia started not with the grade school, but it started with the University of Georgia in Athens, where he had worked and built a new student center and created a core of students who loved Jesus. And that center supported the first generation of Black students in the state of Georgia, even after he was gone. Keep your eye on Jesus. Amen.